Have you ever walked through a place so silent that it felt as if the world itself were holding its breath, waiting for you to listen? Not a silence of emptiness, but one woven from the faint traces of lives once lived, like a soft echo rising from the stones beneath your feet. Tonight, on this gentle journey into the past, I invite you to let your breath slow and your thoughts drift as we step together into the lost city of Pompeii, a place where time once stopped so completely that its final heartbeat still lingers in the air. Close your eyes and imagine the warm breeze that glides over the Bay of Naples. On a calm evening, it carries the scent of the sea, a faint sweetness of citrus from distant orchards, and the earthy aroma of ancient volcanic soil. The sky above is a deep shade of blue, the kind that settles quietly after sunset, when the last light dissolves into the horizon and the first stars shimmer like scattered embers. In this peaceful darkness, the silhouette of Mount Vesuvius rises gently, a quiet guardian that watches over the land without revealing the power it holds within. As you stand at the entrance of Pompeii, the stones beneath your feet feel cool and worn smooth by the countless footsteps that passed this way long before you were born. The air is still, and yet it feels alive with memory. You can almost hear the soft murmur of a marketplace winding down for the night, the rhythmic splashing of water in a fountain, and the distant laughter of children returning home before the lamps are lit. Every sound is gentle, softened by time, like a dream that refuses to fade completely. Let your mind wander through the narrow streets paved with ancient basalt. Picture the warm glow of oil lamps shimmering inside the houses, casting gentle light on walls painted with scenes of gardens, gods, and mythological figures. Feel the smooth texture of frescoes beneath your fingertips, the cool surface of terracotta jars lining the kitchens, and the faint warmth rising from ovens where bakers prepared bread for the coming morning. Life here once moved at a steady, human pace, unhurried and full of small moments that carried great meaning. Somewhere nearby, a poet sits beneath a pergola draped in vines, whispering lines he hopes will survive long after he is gone. Two friends share wine in a quiet courtyard, their voices drifting upward into the night. A merchant closes the shutters of his shop, carefully stacking the day's earnings inside a wooden chest. A mother hums softly as she tucks her child into bed. These gentle stories belong to real people whose dreams, worries, and joys were not so different from ours. Though their voices have faded, the warmth of their presence still rests in the air like the final notes of a familiar melody. As we begin this quiet passage together, I invite you to stay with me through every word, allowing the rhythm of the narration to guide you deeper into rest. With each breath, feel the calm of the night settling around you. Imagine the soft whisper of the wind brushing past the open windows of Pompeii's villas, the delicate rustle of olive trees swaying along the hillside, and the steady heartbeat of a city alive in its final peaceful hours. If you'd like, share where in time or space you are listening from, and I will carry your voice with me through this journey. If you wish to return for another night among ruins, seas, or forgotten worlds, consider joining the channel, where each story will wait patiently for you. Take one last slow breath. Feel the cool stone beneath your feet, the faint glow of distant lanterns, and the gentle hush of a city suspended between life and memory. Our voyage begins here, not with the eruption that history remembers, but with the quiet world that existed before it. Tonight, we walk through Pompeii as it once was, guided by the warmth of its final twilight and the echoes it left behind. Let the night surround you as we step into a story preserved in ash, yet still alive with whispers. In the soft light of a new morning, Pompeii awakens with the gentle rhythm of a city that has known peace for generations. The sun rises slowly over the Bay of Naples, casting a warm golden hue across the rooftops of terracotta and the pale stone of the streets. As you walk through the city, imagine the warmth of the early light touching your skin, the kind that feels almost like a quiet blessing after the coolness of night. The air carries a delicate mixture of scents, the salt of the sea, the freshness of damp earth, and the faint sweetness of figs ripening in nearby orchards. Everything in Pompeii feels unhurried, as if time itself is content to move at the pace of human breath. Along the main road, merchants are beginning to open their shops, sliding wooden shutters aside as sunlight spills in and reveals shelves filled with amphorae, cloth, and pottery. You can hear the soft scrape of broom bristles as someone sweeps the front step of a bakery, preparing for the first customers of the day. Inside, Loaves of bread rise in the warmth of the oven, their crusts forming slowly, filling the air with an aroma so comforting that it seems to wrap around you. A potter carries a tray of newly fired bowls out into the street, their surfaces still warm to the touch, the clay glowing softly in the morning light. Every movement is measured, unhurried, as though the city understands the beauty of beginning a day in calm silence. As you wander deeper into the residential quarters, the sound of footsteps echoes faintly against the stone walls. A family emerges from their home, the father adjusting the folds of his tunic while his children chase each other playfully down the street. Their laughter rings through the air, bright and carefree, blending with the gentle cooing of doves perched along the rooftops. In a nearby courtyard, a woman draws water from a cistern, her bracelets chiming softly as she works. Her motions are practiced, steady, guided by years of repetition, yet there is a tenderness in the simple ritual of preparing the household for the day ahead. The streets of Pompeii are alive with the small rituals that give shape to ordinary lives. A fruit seller arranges clusters of grapes and figs on a wooden table, smoothing the cloth beneath them with careful hands. The colors deep purples, greens, and warm reds seem to glow against the muted stone behind them. Further down the street, the click of hooves announces the passage of a donkey pulling a cart laden with firewood. Its pace is slow, as if it too feels the ease of the morning settling over the city. Near the forum, a group of men gather in quiet conversation, their voices low and thoughtful as they discuss the day's business before the square fills with the usual activity. Not far away, the public baths begin to stir. Workers open the doors to let the cool air drift inside, carrying with it the faint echo of footsteps across mosaic floors. The pools shimmer in the early light, their surfaces still and glass-like. Attendants prepare the warm rooms, setting fresh oils and linens in place, ready to welcome visitors seeking a moment of rest and renewal. You can almost feel the warmth of the steam that will soon rise through the air, carrying with it the softness of herbal scents. The baths are more than a place for cleansing. They are a refuge where the city pauses, breathes, and gathers itself in quiet dignity. As you continue your walk, you pass villas whose gardens are just beginning to awaken. The leaves of grapevines rustle gently in the faint breeze, and clusters of flowers open slowly to greet the sun. Water trickles softly from a fountain carved with delicate figures, its surface catching the first glimmers of light and scattering them across the courtyard walls. Inside one of the villas, a painter kneels before a fresh plaster wall, mixing pigments with steady hands. His brushes move in slow, deliberate strokes as he adds color to a scene of myth and beauty, creating images meant to last for generations. The faint scent of pigment and lime drifts through the air, mingling with the aroma of blooming rosemary nearby. Elsewhere, a farmer leads his small team of workers out toward the vineyards that stretch beyond the city. Their sandals press into the soft soil as they walk, leaving gentle imprints that will soon be warmed by the rising sun. The land around Pompeii is rich, nourished by centuries of volcanic soil that gives the vineyards their particular sweetness. The farmer pauses for a moment to look toward the mountain, its broad shape outlined against the clear sky. To him, it is as familiar as the fields he tends, a constant presence that has shaped the land and the seasons. He sees nothing unusual, only the quiet majesty of nature in its peaceful repose. Inside the workshops, artisans begin their day with steady purpose. A metal worker heats bronze until it glows like molten amber, shaping it with rhythmic strikes of his hammer. Sparks rise and drift through the air, settling like tiny stars before fading away. In another workshop, a weaver sits before her loom, guiding threads of vibrant color through each other with precise movements. The soft clatter of the loom forms a soothing rhythm, echoing gently through the quiet room as patterns slowly emerge beneath her hands. These crafts, honed through years of practice, are the heartbeat of Pompeii, binding its people together through the artistry of their daily labor. As the morning deepens, the forum becomes more lively. Vendors arrange displays of olives, herbs, and spices that create waves of fragrance with every passing breeze. The sound of conversation grows warmer, more animated, yet always remains wrapped in a sense of harmony. People greet one another with familiar smiles, exchanging news and stories as they go about their tasks. Couples stroll beneath the colonnades, their footsteps echoing lightly against the stone. The sun casts long shadows that stretch across the square, touching the statues and columns that stand as guardians of the city's history. Yet even in all this warmth and movement, there's a quietness beneath the surface, not of fear, but of stillness. It is the kind of calm that settles over a place deeply rooted in its own identity, where every street, every stone, and every whispered conversation holds the weight of long tradition. Pompeii is a city that knows itself well, confident in its beauty, its rhythms, and the peaceful life that unfolds within its walls. Nothing seems fragile or temporary. Everything feels steady, anchored, permanent. As you pause at the edge of the forum and let the sounds of the city wash over you, the mountain stands behind you, silent and unassuming. Its slopes rise gently, touched by sunlight, covered in greenery that sways softly in the breeze. To the people of Pompeii, it is simply part of the world, a familiar shape on the horizon that has never given them reason to fear. Life continues beneath its shadow as it always has, full of warmth, laughter, and the quiet dignity of ordinary days. Before the mountains stirred, Pompeii existed in perfect balance, alive with voices and footsteps, and the countless small moments that make a city feel like home. It is this living world that we carry with us now, holding it gently in memory before the path ahead begins to shift. For tonight, we remain here, in the softness of a morning long forgotten, where life moved slowly and beautifully under a sky that seemed endless. As the sun settles into its familiar path across the sky, Pompeii moves into the gentle rhythm of another day, unaware that beneath its feet the earth is beginning to shift in ways so subtle that only the most attentive senses might notice. The morning hum of life continues, much as it always has, yet there is a quiet whisper in the air, a faint tremor that brushes the edge of awareness like the soft touch of a distant memory. It is not a sound that startles or alarms, but rather a low murmur that seems to come from deep within the ground, carried upward through the stones worn, smooth by centuries of footsteps. In the marketplace, where merchants weave color and scent into the fabric of daily life, a basket of small clay cups rattles gently against its wooden shelf. The merchant pauses, his hand lingering in the air for just a moment, as though listening for something he cannot quite name. The tremor fades as quickly as it came, leaving behind a stillness that feels almost gentle, like the city itself exhaled a quiet breath. He resumes his work with a shake of his head, dusting off the cups and continuing to arrange his wares with practiced precision. Across the street, a group of children chase each other around the base of a fountain carved with dancing figures. Their laughter rings brightly, filling the square with life. Yet even they paused for the briefest moment when the water ripples more sharply than before. One of the children dips a hand into the fountain, feeling the temperature of the water as if expecting it to tell him a secret. The ripples settle, and the game resumes, leaving only a soft hush in the air, a whisper too quiet to disturb the innocence of their play. Elsewhere in the city, in a modest workshop scented with warm oils and fresh wood, a carpenter feels a faint vibration under his feet. The tools on his table tremble in place, creating a tiny chorus of soft clinks as metal touches wood. He steadies one of the table legs with quiet care, then looks toward the open doorway where sunlight spills into the room. The world appears unchanged, calm, warm, predictable. With a thoughtful breath, he returns to his work, guiding smooth strokes of his plane across the surface of the timber, unaware of the deeper rhythms unfolding beneath him. In a nearby garden, fragrant with rosemary and jasmine, a woman kneels among the herbs, her fingers brushing lightly across the leaves as she gathers what she needs for the evening meal. She pauses when she feels a faint shiver run through the soil, lifting her hand as though she has touched a living heartbeat. The sound is so soft that it could easily be mistaken for the distant roll of a cart or the gentle shifting of vines in the breeze. She stands slowly, looking toward the mountain rising in the distance. It appears serene and unmoving, its silhouette steady against the pale blue sky. With a quiet nod to herself, she continues her gathering, the whisper fading back into the earth. As the day continues, small signs appear in places where the city rarely pauses to look closely. A crack in a villa wall stretches just a little farther than it had the day before, its edges fine and delicate like the lines of an aging hand. A dog resting in the shade of a doorway lifts its head, ears pricked as though catching a sound too low for human ears to hear. A jar in the corner of a kitchen trembles so slightly that it could easily be dismissed as the result of a passing footstep. These signs rise and fall throughout the day like the ebb and flow of the tide, subtle enough to be woven seamlessly into the rhythm of life. Near the edge of the city, where the land gently slopes toward the sea. A farmer guides his plow through the dark soil. Each step is steady, familiar, shaped by years of tending these fields. Yet, now and then the earth seems to shift beneath him, not enough to unbalance him, but enough to draw his gaze toward the mountain. The air around him feels different, not tense, but heavier with a quiet presence, as though the land itself is gathering thoughts it has not shared in generations. The farmer wipes his brow, listening to the faint hum of insects and the distant cries of birds. Everything seems as it has always been, yet something whispers from a place far beneath the soil. Inside the baths, where warm steam rises in gentle clouds and voices echo softly across tiled walls, visitors pause as small ripples travel across the surface of the water. The lanterns hanging from the ceiling sway slightly, their flames shifting as though stirred by an invisible hand. A man resting in the warm pool lifts his head, the water streaming down his shoulders in delicate lines. He listens, hearing only the rhythmic dripping of water from a distant pipe. The tremor fades, and the room settles once more into its tranquil embrace. Someone comments that the ground must be settling, and a few soft laughs follow, their sound carrying lightly through the humid air. Beyond the city, along the slopes of the mountain itself, tiny wisps of steam escape from narrow cracks in the earth. They rise quietly into the air, invisible to most eyes from a distance, blending with the warm breath of the day. Birds circle above the mountainside with slow, deliberate movements, their wings cutting through the sky in elegant lines. To anyone who glances upward, the mountain appears calm, a steady presence that has watched over the region for centuries. Its face reveals nothing of the stirring deep within, the ancient forces shifting like restless dreams beneath layers of stone. As evening approaches, the light over Pompeii softens into shades of amber and rose. The shadows stretch longer across the streets as households prepare for the gentle end of another day. A soft breeze moves through the city, brushing past open windows and carrying with it the faint scent of the sea. Yet beneath that familiar breeze, there is another sensation, an almost imperceptible warmth rising from the ground, like the exhale of something stirring in its sleep. It is so subtle that most would never notice it, but to the few who pause and listen, it feels as if the earth is whispering in a language forgotten by time. Families gather for the evening meal, sharing bread, wine, and stories of the day. The flicker of lamplight casts warm patterns on the walls, illuminating the faces of those who sit together in comfort. A soft tremor shivers through the floor beneath them, and the lamps flutter briefly before settling once more into stillness. The moment passes quickly, leaving behind a silence that feels deeper than before, yet gentle enough to be mistaken for nothing more than the settling of an old house. As night descends fully, Pompeii grows quiet again. The streets empty, the shops close, and the rhythmic sounds of the city fade into a serene hush. The mountain stands in the distance, a dark silhouette beneath a sky heavy with stars. It watches without movement, its presence both familiar and unknowable. The whispers beneath the earth continue, steady but soft, a murmur of ancient forces gathering in the deep. For now, the city sleeps peacefully, held in the embrace of a night that feels calm and reassuring. No one imagines that these faint tremors are part of a story much larger than themselves, a story waiting patiently to unfold. All that exists in this moment is the quiet breath of Pompeii, the soft hum of the earth beneath it, and the echoes of a world that still believes tomorrow will come as it always has. Morning arrives once more in Pompeii, unfolding with the same gentle grace that has long defined the city's rhythm. The first light of day spills across the rooftops like a soft veil of gold, warming the stones that held the coolness of night only moments before. As you step into the sunlit streets, the world feels bright and open, every color made more vivid by the clear sky stretching above. The faint tremors of previous days linger in hidden corners of memory. Yet the city moves forward with a confidence shaped by countless cycles of dawn and dusk, believing deeply in the stability of its own existence. The streets come alive with the familiar sounds of footsteps, conversations, and the gentle clatter of tools beginning their morning tasks. Families open the shutters of their homes, letting sunlight flow into rooms decorated with paintings of gardens, landscapes, and distant gods who have watched over this city for generations. A faint breeze weaves through the corridors, carrying with it the scent of warm bread rising in the bakeries and the floral sweetness of morning blossoms opening along garden walls. Every detail feels touched by warmth, as though the sunlight itself is guiding the day. Near the heart of the city, the marketplace bursts into full color. Traders lay out their goods beneath woven awnings that sway softly with each passing gust of wind. Tables are covered with vibrant displays. Figs split open to reveal their ruby centers. Clusters of grapes dotted with dew. Shining olives in carved wooden bowls. The air is alive with scents: fresh herbs, warm honey, drying fish. Each smell blends delicately with the others to create an atmosphere that feels both comforting and lively. People move through the market in smooth, unhurried paths, choosing fruits, greeting neighbors, and sharing small stories that drift into the air like soft threads woven into the fabric of the day. Just beyond the marketplace, the workshops fill with the rich energy of creation. In one corner of the city, a bronze smith shapes a glowing piece of metal with steady, rhythmic strikes, each movement producing a shower of golden sparks that fade before they touch the floor. The metal sings faintly under the hammer's touch, its tone rising and falling in a soothing cadence. Nearby, a weaver sits at her loom, guiding threads of deep blues and warm reds through the frame as the fabric slowly takes shape beneath her hands. The wooden beams of the loom creak softly with each motion, creating a gentle music that echoes through the quiet room. Inside one of the more refined villas, light filters through an open atrium, scattering across the surface of a shallow pool where the sky is reflected in rippling fragments. A painter kneels beside a wall freshly coated with plaster, mixing pigments with careful deliberation. His palette holds shades of ochre, emerald, and vermilion, each one ground by hand to achieve the perfect balance of color. He raises his brush and begins applying smooth strokes, bringing to life a scene of lush gardens and elegant figures in flowing robes. The scent of pigment, earthy and slightly metallic, mingles with the fragrance of flowers floating in from the courtyard, creating a sense of timeless calm. Not far from the painter's tranquil workspace, the public baths welcome the first visitors of the day. Sunlight streams through small windows, striking the mosaics along the floor and bringing to life scenes of dolphins, waves, and playful sea creatures. The warm room hums with quiet conversation as people settle into the rising steam, letting it soften their muscles and ease the tension from their bodies. Water laps gently against the edges of the pools, creating a calming rhythm that seems to wash through the room. Attendants move slowly, their motions graceful as they replenish oils, gator tools, and maintain the serenity that the baths have always offered. Outside the city walls, the landscape stretches into endless shades of green and gold. Farmers tend to their fields, their footsteps leaving soft impressions in the soil that will soon be warmed by the midday sun. Vineyards climb the slopes in careful rows, each vine heavy with promise. The farmers work with practiced hands, adjusting branches and checking the progress of grapes that swell slowly toward ripeness. The land, enriched by centuries of volcanic soil, offers its bounty generously, and the people respond with the same quiet care, nurturing the earth as it nurtures them. Along the coastline, fishermen prepare their nets, uncoiling ropes that glisten faintly with morning dew. The sea is calm, its surface shimmering like liquid glass under the rising sun. Small boats rock gently in the harbor, their wooden frames creaking softly as the tide shifts beneath them. The fishermen push off from shore with measured, practiced movements, their oars cutting through the water with smooth precision. Waves roll outward in gentle ripples, spreading across the bay like the breath of the sea itself. In the quieter districts of Pompeii, children gather in open courtyards to play games that have been passed down through generations. Their laughter rises into the air in bright bursts, echoing off the walls as they chase painted stones or draw simple patterns in the dust. A teacher walks nearby, guiding a group of older children reciting lines of poetry beneath the shade of a fig tree. The words blend softly with the rustling leaves overhead, creating a melody of learning and nature intertwined. By midday, sunlight pours through the city with its full warmth, casting sharp shadows along the colonnades and illuminating the painted frescoes that decorate the walls of homes and public buildings. Pompeii glows with life, vibrant, confident, and unaware of anything looming beneath its foundations. Conversations flow easily, markets remain lively, and families share meals in the soft shade of their gardens. Everything feels deeply rooted in the present moment, anchored not by certainty but by the gentle familiarity of daily life. As the afternoon drifts toward evening, the city begins to settle into a slower pace. Shops close their doors, the marketplace empties, and workers return home, covered in the dust and scents of their craft. Soft music begins to rise from the homes where families gather, the notes of flutes and quiet strings weaving through the air like threads of warmth. Lamps are lit, one by one, filling the streets with a wash of golden light that flickers against the walls and follows the curve of the stones beneath your feet. At the edge of the city, the mountain stands quiet in the fading sun. Its slopes look serene, covered in soft greenery that changes color as the light shifts from gold to deep amber. Birds settle among the branches of nearby trees, their wings rustling softly as they prepare for nightfall. The sky above turns delicate shades of rose and violet, each color melting into the next, like pigments blended on an artist's palette. With each passing moment, the city breathes in calm unity, holding its place beneath the vast sky. The whispers from beneath the earth remain faint, buried beneath the warmth and movement of a day that feels complete. Life continues with gentle certainty, unaware that the sunlit hours of Pompeii are already part of a story that time is preparing to preserve in its quiet, patient way. As the final rays of sunlight fade, the city rests once more in the glow of evening lamps, wrapped in the comfort of routine and the belief that tomorrow will bring another day, just as warm, just as bright, just as beautifully ordinary. In these days painted in sunlight, Pompeii exists in its fullest grace, suspended between the world that knows and the moment when everything will begin to change. For now, the city remains exactly as it dreams itself to be alive, vibrant, and eternally bathed in golden light. Evening settles over Pompeii, with the kind of gentle familiarity that comes from centuries of routine. The warm glow of the sun begins to fade, leaving behind a soft amber light that stretches across the rooftops and turns the narrow streets into quiet pathways of shadow and warmth. It is a time of day when the city seems to breathe more slowly, as if exhaling the energy of the afternoon and welcoming the calm that comes with approaching night. Everything feels steady, held in the comforting rhythm of a world that expects tomorrow to unfold just as naturally as today. As the remaining sunlight brushes the tops of the columns in the forum, people finish their tasks with unhurried motions. A vendor folds the corners of his canopy, carefully tying each knot before closing his stall for the night. Two women carrying baskets filled with herbs and fruit walk toward their homes, their conversation soft and measured, blending into the hush of dusk. The mixture of scents: olive oil, warm bread, crushed basil, and distant sea air drifts through the streets, creating a fragrance that feels as familiar as an embrace. Nothing in this moment suggests anything other than peace. In the quiet residential districts, lamps are being lit one by one. Flames flicker gently inside clay lanterns, sending warm patterns across walls decorated with frescoes that show scenes of banquets, gardens, or mythological tales. The gentle illumination brings these paintings to life, casting soft shadows that move like slow, graceful whispers beneath the pale light. Families gather for dinner, their voices rising in calm conversation, as bowls are set on tables and pitchers of wine are poured with steady hands. The laughter of children drifts through open windows, warm and unbroken, a playful melody that threads itself into the evening air. Nearby, a small group of musicians begins to rehearse in the courtyard of a villa. Their instruments, lyres, flutes, and soft drums create a harmony that floats across the surrounding streets. Neighbors pause to listen, leaning against doorways or resting their elbows on windowsills as the music wraps gently around them. The sound is tender and fluid, echoing the rhythm of a city at ease. No one questions the faint tremors that occasionally ripple through the ground beneath their feet. They pass too quickly, too lightly, to stir concern. Life moves on, rooted firmly in the belief that the world is as stable as the earth they walk upon. Down by the workshops, craftsmen clean their tools for the night. The potter runs his hands along the curve of a newly finished amphora, feeling the smoothness of the clay as though memorizing the shape in his fingertips. He sets it gently among others in a row, each one glimmering softly under lamplight. A metalworker extinguishes the last coals in his forge, the fading embers glowing like tiny stars settling into rest. The smell of warm metal lingers in the air, mixing with the faint, sweet scent of nearby fig trees. All around the city, work winds down, not with haste, but with the steady grace of people who trust the constancy of their world. Beyond the city walls, the slopes of Mount Vesuvius are bathed in the final hues of the setting sun. The mountain stands still, as it always has, its broad silhouette blending into the deepening colors of the sky. birds trace lazy circles above the treetops, returning to their nests as the first stars begin to appear. Small wisps of steam rise from cracks along the mountainside, but they dissolve into the cooling air before catching the attention of anyone below. To the people of Pompeii, the mountain is a familiar presence. It is part of the landscape, a guardian whose silence has been trusted for generations. Back inside the city, the baths welcome late visitors seeking a moment of warmth before nightfall. The water shimmers beneath the soft lamplight, sending gentle reflections across the mosaic tiles. The steam curls upward in graceful ribbons, carrying the soothing scents of rosemary, lavender, and worn marble. Voices echo softly across the high ceilings as people sink into the warm pools, their conversations unhurried and thoughtful. Someone comments on a faint tremor felt earlier, and a few others nod, but the moment passes quickly. Absorbed by the calm atmosphere of the baths, the tremors have become familiar, woven into daily life, like distant waves that lap softly against the shore. Along the coast, fishermen return to the harbor, guiding their boats through waters that reflect the deepening colors of dusk. The sea is calm, its surface rippling gently as the boats glide across it. The fishermen tie their ropes, sort through their catch, and speak in low tones as they prepare their nets for the next day. The smell of salt and seaweed mixes with the cool night air, creating a sense of timeless rhythm. The shoreline glows with the reflection of lanterns from the city, small points of light shimmering on the water like scattered stars. Everything feels steady, peaceful, unchanging. As night settles fully over Pompeii, the city feels embraced by its own warmth and familiarity. Couples stroll beneath the colonnades, their footsteps echoing lightly against the stone. Friends gather in courtyards to share wine and soft conversation, the gentle clinking of cups punctuating their quiet laughter. The air grows cooler, carrying with it the distant hum of nighttime insects and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then settles into silence again. The city rests under a sky filled with stars that shine with steady, comforting light. Inside one of the villas near the Forum, a philosopher writes by lamplight, his brush gliding across the surface of a wax tablet. His thoughts move slowly, shaped by the calmness of the night and the belief that time stretches endlessly ahead. He pauses only when he feels a faint tremor beneath the floor. But instead of fear, he experiences a quiet curiosity. The tremor is gentle, almost soothing, like the heartbeat of something vast and unseen. He waits for it to fade, then continues writing, unaware that these small, almost unnoticeable vibrations are part of a story the city cannot yet comprehend. For the people of Pompeii, tomorrow is assumed anticipated with urgency, but expected with serene confidence. The world around them has always been generous. The soil is fertile, the sea abundant, the streets alive with color and warmth. Life unfolds with a balance that feels unshakable. The whispers beneath the earth are too soft to disturb the peace that has shaped their lives for generations. Tonight, under the vast canopy of stars, Pompeii drifts into rest once more. Lamps flicker gently behind shuttered windows, casting thin blades of light onto ancient stone. The mountain stands in quiet silhouette. The earth hums softly below, and the city beautiful, unaware, suspended in its own timeless rhythm sleeps. Without fear, without urgency, without the faintest thought that the world might ever change. Pompeii is a city that never expected tomorrow to be any different from today, and in that serene belief, it moves gracefully through its final nights, holding tightly to its ordinary wonders, unaware of how precious each moment has already become. Morning returns to Pompeii with its usual softness, but for some, the world feels ever so slightly altered, as though the familiar rhythm has developed a tremor of hesitation. Most of the city continues to move with its graceful routine merchants sweeping their thresholds and neighbors, exchanging greetings, bakers, tending to warm loaves rising in their ovens, but beneath the surface of daily life, a handful of quiet thoughts begin to stir. They are not sharp or alarming, merely soft shadows at the edges of perception, like the faint chill that lingers when a cloud passes briefly over the sun. In one of the narrow streets near the Forum, a young woman pauses beside a fountain to fill a clay jug with water. As she waits for it to fill, she notices a slight tremble run through the stone basin, causing the water's surface to ripple in a pattern that is almost hypnotic. She tilts her head, watching the movement with gentle curiosity. It is subtle, so subtle that she could easily dismiss it as the result of someone walking heavily nearby, but something in her chest tightens with a feeling she cannot quite name. She takes a slow breath, reminding herself of the city's long stability, and carries the jug home, the ripples fading as quickly as they appeared. Across town, in a modest villa shaded by olive trees, a potter works at his wheel with the steady patience of someone who has shaped clay every day for years. But this morning, the clay seems to resist him, wobbling slightly each time the earth gives a faint shiver beneath the floor. He steadies the pot with both hands, his fingers leaving delicate grooves along its surface. The tremors are gentle, almost tender, like a distant hum felt rather than heard. Yet each time they pass, he feels a flutter of unease in his stomach. He tries to dismiss it as fatigue, or perhaps a trick of imagination, but the sensation lingers like a quiet whisper in the back of his mind. Near the baths, a group of older men sit beneath a portico, playing a board game carved into the stone. They move their pieces with measured grace, pausing occasionally to comment on the shifting weather or the quality of the harvest. One of them, a man with silver-streaked hair and a calm gaze, sets his piece down and lets his hand rest on the warm stone beneath him. He frowns slightly as he feels the faintest vibration run upward through his palm. It is such a gentle, fleeting sensation that it feels almost like a pulse, steady, rhythmic, and alive. He looks toward the mountain in the distance, its silhouette calm beneath the morning light. After a moment, he returns to the game, though his thoughts drift toward memories of stories told long ago about the earth beneath their feet. In another part of the city, the owner of a modest shop notices a small crack along the corner of her wall. It is thin as a strand of hair, delicate enough that it might have always been there, unnoticed among the patterns of plaster and aging paint. She traces it with the tip of her finger, feeling the coolness of the wall beneath her skin. The crack does not worry her, not truly, but a flicker of uncertainty passes through her mind, like the faintest breeze disturbing a still pool of water. She rubs her thumb over it once more before turning back to her shelves, arranging jars of spices with practiced care. For many in Pompeii, the tremors have become part of the background, a soft, occasional reminder of the mountain's presence, no more concerning than a gust of wind or a sudden change in temperature. Yet there are those who feel the weight of something unspoken. A shepherd tending his flock on the outskirts of the city notices that the animals seem restless, shifting uneasily even when the fields are quiet and the sky is clear. A fisherman returning from the sea glances toward the mountain more often than usual, sensing a heaviness in the air that he cannot explain. A mother preparing her family's midday meal pauses with her hand on a clay pot, feeling a slight vibration beneath her feet that makes her heart flutter for a moment before settling again. Still, life continues with its gentle pace. The baths fill with laughter and warm water. The marketplace hums with familiar voices, and the perfume of blooming flowers drifts lazily along the streets. Yet beneath these comforting scents and sounds, there is an undercurrent, a suggestion of change that the city is not yet ready to acknowledge. People glance toward the mountain with a mixture of affection and caution, as though sensing a quiet tension in its stillness. They whisper small concerns to one another, but such conversations fade quickly, overtaken by the demands of daily life. Even as the tremors become slightly more frequent, the city responds with the patience and resilience shaped by generations. After all, the mountain has stood watch over them for as long as anyone can remember. Its slopes are fertile, its presence familiar, its silence reassuring. Perhaps, they think, this is simply the earth, reminding them of its age, shifting, breathing in ways that humans cannot fully understand. The idea brings comfort, allowing unease to soften into acceptance. As evening approaches, the lamps begin to glow once more along the streets. People return to their homes, gathering around tables, where conversations drift toward ordinary topics. A neighbor's new child, the promising harvest, the upcoming festival. Laughter fills the rooms in warm, gentle waves, pushing back any shadows of uncertainty. Yet in moments of quiet, a brief pause between sentences. The stillness that follows a shared jokesome feel a subtle weight pressing softly at the edges of their awareness. A feeling that something beneath the surface of life is shifting, not quickly, but with slow, deliberate patience. Outside, the mountain stands dark against the sky, its outline unwavering. A faint plume of steam rises from its peak, barely visible in the dimming light, dissolving almost instantly into the air. To most, It is nothing more than a phantom of mist, a brief trick of the cooling atmosphere. Only a few notice it, and even they quickly dismiss it, comforted by the mountain's long history of silence. Night deepens. The city settles, and in that quiet, the fears that fluttered through the day grow softer, slipping into the background like the hush of distant waves fading along the shore. These are not loud fears, not urgent or alarming. They are silent, delicate, and easy to ignore. They rest beneath the surface of life, waiting for the moment when the earth's whispers will become impossible to overlook. For now, Pompeii remains wrapped in its gentle routines. The quiet conflicts stay hidden within hearts that still believe in tomorrow. The silent fears nestle under the warmth of familiar patterns. And the city, caught between certainty and the faintest sense of unease, drifts peacefully through another night beneath a mountain whose story is only beginning to unfold. Night drifts over Pompeii once more, settling like a soft veil across rooftops, gardens, and quiet streets. The lamps glow faintly behind shuttered windows, their warm light flickering along the stone roads that wind through the city. The air is still, carrying the gentle fragrance of cooled earth and distant sea salt. Yet beneath this familiar calm, something has shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible, like the faint tightening of a breath before a whisper is spoken. It begins with a low hum rising from the earth, so soft that it could easily be mistaken for the wind brushing against the eaves of a house. A baker close in his shop pauses for a moment, holding his breath as he listens. The sound lingers for a heartbeat, then fades into the night, leaving behind a sensation he cannot fully describe. He shakes his head gently and returns to securing the shutters, never imagining that he has just heard the earliest echo of a turning point. Far above the city, the mountain rests in its familiar silhouette, outlined against the pale shimmer of stars. Yet a faint glow trembles near its peak of warmth, barely visible, as though the mountain has exhaled a delicate sigh of embers. From the city below, it appears no different from the last light of sunset caught in the mist. Only those who gaze long enough notice a subtle pulse beneath the shadows, a quiet shift in the air that seems to ripple outward with calm inevitability. Inside the baths, where the last visitors linger in warm pools scented with rosemary and citrus, the water trembles once. The ripples slide across the surface in a single, graceful wave before settling into stillness again. Conversations pause. A man resting near the edge lifts his hand to touch the water's surface, feeling the movement quiet beneath his fingers. He looks toward the lantern above him, watching it sway ever so slightly, then return to its steady glow. The moment passes, leaving behind only the familiar murmur of voices and the hush of steam rising into the vaulted ceiling. Elsewhere, in the quiet courtyards of Pompeii's villas, the night carries a strange softness, heavier, as if the air itself is holding something close. The leaves of grapevines rustle without a breeze, as though something deep underground has stirred and risen through the roots. A painter who had fallen asleep at his work table awakens briefly, sensing an unusual stillness around him. He sits up, listening to the silence, feeling the faint vibration passing through the floor like a distant lullaby. The sensation is gentle, almost soothing. After a few moments, he lets sleep pull him back into its quiet embrace. Along the outskirts of the city, the fields lie in darkness, touched only by the glow of occasional lanterns. A shepherd tending to his flock notices that the animals shift restlessly, their heads lifting in unison toward the mountain. He speaks softly to them, his voice calm and reassuring, but the flock senses something he cannot. A faint sound reaches his ears, a muted rumble like distant thunder, slow and rolling. He looks up at the sky, puzzled to see it clear and filled with stars. The sound fades, and the night falls silent again. The shepherd leads the animals to shelter, unaware that he has heard the earliest heartbeat of something ancient awakening. Back within the city, a philosopher writing by lamplight pauses mid-sentence. When the flame flickers with unusual insistence, he shields it with his hand, watching the shadows dance across the walls. Then the floor beneath him trembles, delicate and brief, like a sigh from the depths. He sets down his stylus and listens. The tremor is gone as quickly as it came, leaving the room wrapped in stillness once more. His thoughts wander not to fear, but to curiosity. He scribbles a note on his wax tablet, recording the tremor as one might record a passing thought in a dream. Outside, the sky begins to shift. A thin ribbon of smoke rises from the mountain's peak, drifting slowly into the air. It is faint, pale, and easily overlooked, blending into the darkness as though it were nothing more than a wisp of cloud. But there is a scent carried on the breeze now, subtle and warm. Like stone heated in the sun, it moves through the city, gliding between buildings and gardens, settling on the skin like a breath of something unknown. In the forum, a group of night watchmen walk their patrol, their footsteps echoing softly along the stone pavement. One of them stops suddenly, placing his hand on a nearby column as another tremor passes beneath their feet, almost rhythmic, as though the earth is adjusting its position after a long sleep. They look toward the mountain, its shape unchanging, its surface quiet and dark. After a moment's hesitation, they continue their rounds, comforting themselves with the knowledge that tremors have always been part of life near this. But something is different tonight, not in a way that alarms, but in a way that feels like the world is shifting its weight, as if preparing for a new chapter. The mountain's glow becomes slightly more pronounced, a soft pulse of red hidden within layers of shadow. The plume of smoke grows just a little thicker, rising more steadily into the night sky. The air vibrates with a warmth that feels alive, as though the earth is humming a low, ancient note. Inside the city, people settle into sleep, unaware of the quiet turning unfolding around them. Children dream beneath wool blankets, their breaths soft and even. Dogs curl up near doorways, lifting their heads briefly when the ground murmurs beneath them, then closing their eyes again. Families drift into slumber, believing that tomorrow will arrive with the same gentle sun, the same comforting routines, the same unbroken rhythm of life. All the while, the night deepens, the mountain glows faintly. The earth hums, and Pompeii, wrapped in peaceful darkness, continues its silent journey toward the moment when the whispers beneath the ground will finally gather into a voice that can no longer be ignored. This is the turning point. Quiet, tender, almost invisible, hidden in the shadows of a city that still sleeps without fear. The story moves forward, not with noise or chaos, but with the soft murmur of forces awakening in the deep. Morning arrives in Pompeii, beneath a sky muted by an unfamiliar haze. At first, the light seems only slightly dimmer, as though the sun is rising behind a thin veil of cloud. The city wakes with its usual rhythm, doors opening, footsteps echoing along stone paths, the soft murmur of greetings exchanged between neighbors, but beneath a familiar cadence, a quiet uncertainty ripples gently through the air. It is subtle, fragile, almost reluctant to be acknowledged, like the faint memory of a dream that follows someone into waking. The first to notice the change are the bakers who rise before dawn. As they kindle their ovens, a fine layer of pale dust lies scattered across their counters, soft as flour yet carrying a faint scent of warm stone. They brush it away with practiced movements, though now and then they pause, studying the particles clinging to their fingertips. It is not flour. It is not ash from their ovens. It is something else. Something unfamiliar, but not yet alarming. They continue their work, shaping dough with steady hands, while a quiet thought lingers at the edges of their minds. In the marketplace, merchants find their stalls lightly dusted with the same fine powder. The fruit seller wipes, his tables clean, but as it does, a thin gray film settles again, carried by a breeze that feels slightly warmer than usual. He lifts his eyes toward the mountain, noticing a pale plume rising from its peak, drifting slowly into the sky, like a long, unbroken sigh. The mountain has sent smoke before, he reminds himself. It has murmured and shifted and breathed in ways the people of Pompeii have long accepted. Yet as he watches the smoke drift across the light, he feels a delicate tug of unease in his chest, a soft ache that he cannot entirely explain. Children playing near a fountain notice the tiny flakes falling through the air. They reach out their hands to catch them, watching the powder settle onto their palms like the gentlest snowfall. They laugh, delighting in the novelty, unaware of its meaning. Their laughter rises into the air, bright and unburdened, scattering the tension that tries to gather in the quiet spaces. For a moment, the city feels like it always has a leaf, warm, filled with voices that dance through the streets like music carried on the breeze. But as the morning deepens, the tremors return, not strong, not frightening, but more persistent, like the heartbeat of the earth growing louder with each passing hour. Pots rattle gently on shelves. Water ripples in fountains, without a breath of wind to disturb it. A few people pause mid-step, looking around as though expecting someone to speak. No one does. The tremor fades, replaced by a silence that feels unusually heavy, like a pause in the middle of a sentence that no one quite knows how to finish. In the gardens of the wealthier homes, servants sweep the fine ash from mosaic floors and brush it gently from the leaves of flowers. The petals, once vibrant with color, appear dulled beneath the soft gray dust. Even the air smells different now, warmer, thicker, carrying a faint metallic temps. A woman tending her roses lifts her gaze toward the mountain, noticing the way the smoke twists upward in slow, deliberate spirals. Her breath catches for a moment, not out of fear, but out of an instinctive recognition that something in the world around her is beginning to shift. As the hours pass, the ash begins to fall more steadily. It drifts through the streets in delicate patterns, gathering along rooftops and cloaking the city in a quiet, muted light. People step outside to watch, bringing with them expressions that blend curiosity with restraint. They speak in soft voices, sharing observations and speculations that hover between hope and worry. Some recall stories told by their grandparents, tales of the mountains stirring long ago. Others dismiss the stories with gentle laughter, insisting that the mountain has always given back to the land its fertile soil, its rich vineyards, its gentle slopes bathed in sunlight. Yet the world feels different today. The air grows heavier, the tremors deepen, and the ash continues to fall, settling on skin and hair with a softness that belies its weight. For many, this is the first quiet loss, not of life, not of home, but of certainty. The belief that tomorrow will mirror today begins to waver, not crumble, not collapse, simply waver, like a flame caught in a shifting breeze. People move more slowly, not out of fear but out of contemplation, sensing the delicate fragility of the moment without fully understanding its scope. By midday, visibility begins to blur around the edges. The sky takes on a muted tone, turning sunlight into a diffused glow that feels distant, almost dreamlike. The familiar colors of the city terracotta roofs, painted frescoes, blooming gardens soften beneath a veil of ash. Yet even now, Pompeii maintains its quiet dignity. A meal is shared in a courtyard. A pair of musicians continues to play near the forum, their notes drifting through the thickening air with gentle resilience. Daily life persists, shaped by both habit and hope. In the midst of the uncertainty, small acts of kindness shine more brightly. A young man helps an elderly neighbor sweep the ash from her steps, their conversation flowing with calm gratitude. A mother shields her child's eyes as they walk through a cloud of falling dust, whispering soothing words as she guides them home. Friends gather around a table, sharing wine and steadying one another with quiet presence rather than loud reassurance. These moments, delicate and human, become lanterns that glow softly through the dimming day. Loss begins at this level, not in the dramatic sense of destruction, but in the quiet surrender of what once felt unshakable. A merchant closes his stall earlier than usual, unsure of whether he will open it tomorrow. A craftsman sets aside the piece he was working on, unable to focus through the rhythmic trembling beneath his feet. A family gathers indoors, choosing to stay close, to breathe together, to wait without knowing what they are waiting for. Yet even as uncertainty deepens, there is light small, steady, warm. It glows in the lanterns lit earlier than usual, in the soft pressure of hands held, in the steadying rhythm of voices refusing to let fear speak too loudly. It glows in the instinctive cohesion of a community that has always relied on one another, trusting in the strength of their shared humanity. As evening approaches, the ash continues to fall. Thicker now, though still gentle in its descent, the mountain glows faintly at its peak, a soft orange pulse hidden behind the curtain of haze. The tremors hum beneath the city like a heartbeat growing stronger. Pompeii feels suspended between the world it has always known and the world it does not yet understand. Losses, lessons, and light all blend quietly together in this moment. The loss of certainty, the lessons whispered by the trembling earth, and the light that persists in the hearts of people who gather close as the world around them shifts. Pompeii breathes deeply through the ash-filled air, its people wrapped in the softness of a night that carries both unease and tenderness. And through it all, the city holds on to its quiet light small, human, enduring, shining gently against the gathering shadows. Dawn never truly breaks over Pompeii on this day. Instead, the world awakens beneath a sky cloaked in ash, its light diffused into a muted glow that feels neither like morning nor night. The air is thick with a gentle, drifting haze that moves in slow, dream-like currents through the streets. The familiar colors of the city terracotta, marble, painted frescoes are softened beneath a pale gray veil. It is as though the entire world has been wrapped in a soft, ancient fabric, muffling sound, softening edges, and suspending time in a strange, quiet stillness. The ash falls steadily now, not with force or violence, but with a delicate persistence, settling over rooftops, gardens, and courtyards like a silent snowfall. It gathers in gentle curves along window ledges and stairways, filling the patterns of mosaic floors with fine, powdery light. The city glows with an otherworldly softness, as if underwater or wrapped in mist. Every breath carries the faint scent of warm stone and minerals stirred from deep within the earth. Inside homes, people move slowly, listening to the distant rumble that rises from the mountain, a sound low and steady, like the slow rolling of distant waves. It is not abrupt or terrifying. It is heavy, ancient, almost contemplative. Those who gather near their doorways peer into the soft haze, the world outside appearing blurred around the edges. A child reaches out a hand to catch the falling ash, watching it settle in the creases of their palm like powdered light. The moment feels strange, but still gentle, as though the world is pausing to breathe. Along the streets, footsteps are softened by the thickening ash. Sandals leave muted impressions, soon filled in again by the steady drift from above. Conversations that once filled the air with warmth and movement have quieted, replaced by subdued murmurs, careful breaths, the occasional soft call of someone searching for a loved one. Yet even in this muted world, there is tenderness. Neighbors check on one another, offering water, a shawl, a steadying word. People gather in small groups, holding tightly to the comfort of shared presence. As the morning deepens, the light from the sky dims further. Ash accumulates on rooftops in thicker layers, bending branches of fig trees and softening the shape of statues in the gardens. A faint tremor ripples through the city, stronger than before, yet still slow and rhythmic. Walls groan softly, jars shift on shelves, and the ground beneath bare feet feels warmer, as though the earth itself is exhaling in long, deep breaths. Near the Forum, the once lively center of public life, now feels like a sanctuary wrapped in mist. Columns stand tall, but muted, their shadows barely distinguishable from the haze around them. The statues of gods and heroes appear soft, their features blurred by the ash that clings to their stone forms. People gather here, not in panic, but in quiet contemplation. They stand shoulder to shoulder, gazing up at the sky, trying to understand the soft transformation unfolding around them. The mountain, once a familiar presence on the horizon, is now partially obscured by its own cloud of ash and steam. A faint orange glow pulses at its peak, warm and distant like the light of a lantern seen through fog. The plume rises steadily, curling upward in long spirals that melt into the thickening sky. Too many, it looks like the breath of some ancient creature, awakening for the first time in centuries, slow, purposeful, and unaware of the world below. As the hours pass, the ash deepens, muffling sound until even the softest footsteps feel swallowed by the earth. A woman walking through her courtyard stops to brush the powder from her shoulders, feeling the weight of it settle back moments later. Her garden, once vibrant with rosemary and poppies, is now a pale, silent landscape. Yet she finds beauty in it, a strange, delicate beauty, like the stillness of the first snow in winter. She places her hand on the stone edge of her fountain, feeling the warmth rising through it, a final reminder of the life that flowed so effortlessly until now. Inside a nearby villa, a family gathers around a lantern, its flame flickering within the dense air. The father holds his child close, whispering soft reassurances as he watches the ash drift past the open window. The mother lays out blankets, smoothing them with deliberate care, grounding herself in the familiar act. Though the world outside feels transformed, they create a small island of stillness within their home, wrapped in the quiet strength of closeness. Throughout the city, similar scenes unfold. A potter wipes ash from the rim of a nearly finished vase, tracing the curves as though memorizing them. A teacher shields her students from the falling ash as she leads them indoors, her voice gentle and steady. Two elderly friends sit together beneath a colonnade, their hands clasped as they watch the sky darken with a shared, silent understanding. The city seems to hold its breath, embracing one last moment of connection before the world changes again. By afternoon, the sky grows darker still, taking on a muted bronze hue as the ash thickens. Lamps are lit early, their glow forming hazy halos in the dim air. The tremors beneath the city become more rhythmic, more insistent, though still slow and almost meditative-like. The steady pulse of something vast and unstoppable. People gather in larger groups now, seeking comfort and shared warmth. Voices remain low, reverent, threaded with a quiet resignation and a deeper love for the world around them. And then, as dusk approaches, the final transformation begins. The ash falls faster, heavier, settling in deep layers that shape the city into new forms. Softer, rounder, almost sculpted. Roof lines blend with the sky. Streets become gentle corridors of pale, muted color. The silhouettes of people, animals, and objects merge with the drifting haze, each moment captured and held in a suspended breath. Pompeii is becoming still, not in fear, not in chaos, but in a kind of solemn beauty. The city seems to recognize the magnitude of the moment and offers itself to the transformation with quiet dignity. People stand in doorways and courtyards, holding one another, their shapes softened by the ash that coats their hair, their clothing, their skin. They become part of the landscape, part of the story. The earth is writing with gentle, persistent hands. In these hours, the legacy begins to take shape not through monuments or records, but through the tender humanity frozen into each gentle moment. Every gesture, every breath, every silent embrace is preserved in the drifting ash-like notes in a final song carried into the deep. The city is still alive in this twilight, suspended between time and eternity. Pompeii stands in quiet transformation, offering its last expressions of life to the world that will one day uncover them. And in this suspended moment, mute, luminous, profound, the legacy of its people begins to whisper through the ash, waiting for voices centuries ahead to listen. Time does not return to Pompeii with urgency. It moves slowly, almost tenderly, brushing across the silent city with a patience that only centuries can carry. Long after the ash is settled and the last faint glow of the eruption has faded from the sky, Pompeii rests beneath its soft, heavy shroud, wrapped in a stillness so complete that even the wind seems to hush when passing over it. The world continues its cycles, seasons changing, generations rising and fading, yet beneath the layers of earth and silence, the city sleeps untouched, preserved in the quiet posture of its final moments. Rain falls for the first time days after the ash settles, soaking into the powdery layers and hardening them little by little. The water seeps through rooftops and courtyards, sealing the shapes of homes, gardens, and rooms as if nature were gently molding a memory. Over time, vines crawl across the surface, weaving themselves through cracks and crevices. Trees take root in the soft soil, their roots winding around frozen walls like careful fingers holding something fragile. Birds nest in the new landscape, unaware of the world buried beneath their small wooden twigs, as centuries drift by without disturbance. As time stretches forward, the land heals in its quiet way. Grass softens the slopes that now cover entire streets, while wildflowers bloom where markets once bustled with voices. The mountain stands quietly again, its ancient breath cooled, watching over the hidden city with solemn stillness. Farmers walk across fields that were once vibrant neighborhoods, never guessing that beneath their footsteps lie frescoes, mosaics, tools, trinkets, and the tender remains of everyday lives paused mid-motion. The world above moves on, unaware that the world below remains perfectly still, waiting. Generations who live near the mountain pass down storism rooted in distant memory, others shaped by imagination about a city lost to the fire of the earth. These stories drift through time like gentle threads, weaving into the oral tradition of villages along the coast. Yet no one imagines the remarkable preservation resting beneath the soil. Bowls still sitting on tables, sandals near doorways, colors clinging to walls as though painted yesterday. The city's heartbeat sleeps, but it does not fade. Nearly 2,000 years later, Pompeii stirs softly back into the consciousness of the world, A farmer digging a trench for water finds something strange beneath the ground, a wall, too refined to be natural. He brushes the dirt away with his hands, revealing a shimmer of color that should not exist under layers of earth. He does not yet understand what he has found, but he recognizes instinctively that it is old, impossibly old, and that its silence holds a story. Curiosity brings more hands to the site. Slowly, carefully, the soil is removed, exposing rooms shaped by time but still breathing through their walls. Lanterns are held close to the paintings, and the light reveals scenes of banquets, gardens, and mythology that glow with surprising vibrancy. On the floors, mosaics emerge piece by delicate piece, each one telling a story the earth guarded for centuries. The realization dawns gently. The lost city is here, resting in near-perfect stillness, waiting for the world to listen. The excavation grows, and with it the sense that time itself is leaning forward, watching the slow unveiling. Tools scrape patiently through hardened layers of ash, revealing the curves of pottery, the frames of beds, the outlines of stairways and fountains. Each discovery feels like opening a sealed letter from the past, a message written not in ink, but in the imprint of lives, lived with quiet intention. More intimate details emerge, the details that strike the heart far more deeply than grand architecture ever could. A loaf of bread preserved mid-bake, still carrying the mark of the baker's hand. A set of dice abandoned mid-game, as though someone had simply stepped away for a moment. A dog curled near a doorway, a loom paused midway. These gentle remnants reveal the beauty of ordinary life, showing how simple moments can carry as much weight as history. Grandestalis. And then there are the form's soft impressions left by those who did not escape. Their presence is not frightening, but profoundly human. When plaster fills the cavities left in the ash, their shapes return, emerging with gestures and postures that speak of final moments filled with tenderness, instinct, and the quiet bravery of being human. They appear as reminders not of tragedy alone, but of connection, of care, of shared breaths held in the last quiet instant. Visitors begin to arrive from distant lands as more of the city is revealed. They walk down the stone paths cleared of ash, placing their feet in the same grooves carved long ago by countless steps. They trace fingertips across the cool surfaces of frescoes that had not seen daylight for millennia. They linger in rooms where echoes seem to hum softly in the stillness, feeling a presence that belongs not only to the past, but to something timeless, the gentle persistence of human life. And in walking through these preserved spaces, people discover something that connects them quietly to those who lived here. Pompeii teaches again, not through isolated lessons, but through a continuous, unfolding understanding that rises from its stillness. It reveals how the fragility of life is woven inseparably with the strength of memory, how the beauty of ordinary moments can endure long after the world around them has transformed, and how the silent presence of human lives can persist across millennia, refusing to fade, even when buried beneath time itself. In this meeting of past and present, time gathers around Pompeii like a patient caretaker. It gathers gently, not erasing, but preserving, not silencing, but softening, allowing the city to speak in whispers that drift through its quiet rooms and sunlit corridors. Pompeii is no longer a city lost, it is a breath held across ages, a place where memory rests, waiting for those who are willing to listen with an open heart. Even after its rediscovery, Pompeii does not return to the world with noise or triumph. It emerges gently, as though waking from a long, dreamlike slumber, its presence unfolding little by little to those who walk its quiet streets. The city no longer breathes in the way it once did, yet something warm and unmistakably human lingers in the air, soft, delicate, and unbroken. It is as if the many lives once lived here continued to hum beneath the surface, not in sorrow, but in a tender acknowledgement that their stories still matter. Modern footsteps echo where ancient ones once fell. The sound is muted by centuries of silence, softened by the warm light that now fills the rooms once buried in darkness. Visitors walk slowly, their movements careful, almost reverent, as they trace the outlines of stone benches, peer into open courtyards, and follow the worn paths of streets shaped by carts long vanished. The city no longer pulses with daily life, yet it radiates a quiet presence as though the air itself remembers every whisper, every gesture, every ordinary breath taken long ago. Sunlight filters through the gaps in broken rooftops, spilling across floors that once held the laughter of families, the footsteps of merchants, the songs of children at play. Dust floats lazily through the beams of light, shimmering like drifting memory. The world feels slower here, suspended in a stillness that encourages anyone passing through to listen not with their ears, but with something deeper, something that recognizes the fragile continuity between then and now. In the gardens, where ash once buried every leaf and stem, new plants now take root. Their presence does not erase the past, but grows alongside it, weaving life gently back into the spaces that once overflowed with color. Shadows of columns stretch across the pathways, and the wind moves quietly between them, carrying with it the faint scent of earth warmed by centuries of sun. Even in its silence, the city feels alive, as though offering a reminder that time does not erase all things, it simply changes the form in which they remain. Inside the homes, frescoes glow with soft hues that have somehow endured the long sleep beneath the ash. Scenes of Emmayak, of daily life of nature and celebration still cling to the walls like echoes pressed into stone. Standing before them, one can almost imagine the brush of the artist's hand, the careful breath held before each stroke, the choice of color selected with intention. These images speak not only of beauty, but of continuity, the desire to create, to record, to express something of ourselves in a way that might outlast the moment. Even the quiet spaces, the empty workshops, the silent baths, the still chambers carry an intimate sense of presence. They invite reflection, encouraging visitors to consider the lives that once unfolded here. The morning routines, the gentle conversations, the careful repairs, the soft rituals that define today. There is something deeply tender about these remnants, something that speaks of humanity's eternal wish to leave traces of itself in the world, even unintentionally. The plaster forms discovered beneath the ash add another layer to this quiet conversation. Their shapes remain motionless, yet they feel profoundly alive in what they represent. The instinct to protect, to cling, to reach out. These forms are not monuments to tragedy, they are reminders of connection, of love, of the final moments shared between people who faced uncertainty together. Their presence shapes the emotional landscape of Pompeii, offering a soft, unspoken truth about the human heart and its capacity for closeness. As the day fades in the modern world, the ruins shift into a gentle twilight. Shadows stretch across the ancient streets, and a hush settles over the stones. The light softens, settling into the corners of old rooms and drifting into the quiet arcs of courtyards. The mountain stands silent in the distance, its outline calm against the deepening sky, no longer threatening, simply watching. The city rests in this dim glow, holding its stories close. Visitors leaving at dusk often pause before stepping beyond the gates, sensing something still lingering around them, a faint pool of memory, a whisper of time folding gently around their shoulders. It is not a voice, but a feeling. The sense that Pompeii remains aware of those who walk here, carrying them quietly into its story. The city continues to murmur through its stones, its pathways, its shadows, offering not answers, but presence, not certainty, but reflection. And so, even now, centuries after silence embraced it, Pompeii continues to whisper. Its echoes drift through cracked doorways and broken windows, through the fading outlines of frescoes and the soft steps of visitors who walk with care. These echoes do not cry out, they breathe, gently and endlessly, reminding the world that moments may pass, but their essence can linger in ways both fragile and eternal. In T's place, where Tom once froze in a single breath, memory flows like a quiet river, winding through the spaces between then and now. Pompeii's echoes gather softly beneath the ash, carrying forward the warmth of the lives once lived here, offering them to the present with tenderness rather than sorrow. And long after each visitor is gone, the city remains still, luminous, whispering across ages with a gentle certainty that nothing truly disappears. It simply changes the way it speaks to us. And now, as the last echoes of Pompeii fade softly into the quiet of your room, allow yourself to settle into a deeper calm, letting the weight of history rest lightly upon you. You have wandered through ancient streets, followed forgotten footsteps, and listened to the gentle hum of a world suspended between time and silence. There is nothing left to hold or analyze. The story has folded itself into stillness, settling around you like soft ash, returning to the earth. Imagine the city lying once more beneath the comforting darkness of night, its stones cooled and its courtyards wrapped in silence, while shadows stretch peacefully across the remnants of homes and gardens. Let that quiet seep slowly into you, easing your breath into a steady rhythm that drifts like dust in warm evening light. The journey lingers only as a warm glow, a reminder of how fragile and beautiful each moment can be, offering you permission to slow down, release the weight of the day, and rest in the tenderness of now. As your body becomes heavier and your thoughts loosen their hold, let yourself sink into the bed the way the ancient city once sank beneath the gentle fall of ash, without resistance, without urgency. Your hands can rest, your shoulders can soften, and your mind can drift like a lantern floating across a quiet courtyard. The night is patient, waiting for you with the same timeless stillness that once waited over Pompeii, needing nothing, demanding nothing, simply offering space for you to close your eyes whenever the soft pull of sleep begins to gather. With each deeper breath, feel the quiet expand around you, a warm and steady presence wrapping itself like a soft cloak around your thoughts. The memory of the ancient city folds into this peaceful darkness, carrying with it a sense of serenity that guides you gently toward rest. There is no boundary between waking and dreaming, only a slow, tender drift into a place where the world softens, where echoes fade, and where calm rises like a tide. As you let go of the day, allow the ash to settle within you as a feeling of stillness, the echoes to soften into a gentle hum of comfort, and the night to carry you effortlessly toward the beginning of your dreams. Sleep well, dear traveler, knowing that the city you have visited in your imagination will wait quietly in the folds of memory, ready to welcome you back whenever your heart feels the call to return.